Don't ask me to look for anything bad on this tree. This is one of the fullest trees we have in the whole place.
Give him a bit. He's gonna be all right right now.
Yeah, we'll be
Okay.
all right. Just start with your name and then spell it for me, please.
Okay, Dennis Fulbright, Dennis Fulbright.
And what's your title, Dennis?
Professor of Plant Pathology in the Department of Plants, Soils, and Microbial Sciences.
That's a new one. That's the new one,
That's a
Wow.
tough one.
Yeah.
right? Okay, and you can just look at Holly and answer the questions.
So tell us a little bit about where we are in the trees that we're looking at today.
Okay, we're in Kellogg Forest, and we're looking at spruce trees. These are blue spruce, Colorado blue spruce, and they came from a tree farm, and they were placed here by the Kellogg Forest crew, working with the tree farm grower, and they were placed here because these trees have a pretty serious disease. You may not notice it, but certainly the people who wanted to buy these trees noticed it and sent them back to the tree farm grower as not acceptable.
And what's the issue with the trees?
These trees have a disease of the branches called phomopsis. It's an infection right on the branch. And this was one of the first places we saw this disease in the tree farms. And this phomopsis fungus actually gets on the branch and strangles the branch by growing around it. And then the branch loses its needles, and finally it loses the tip, and the branch dies. So we saw it in the tree farms first, but about the same time we saw it in the landscape trees. And people are driving around now or noticing at their own homes that many of their Colorado blue spruce and other spruce are losing branches. The branches are dying. And this is part of a decline syndrome we've noticed, that phomopsis is being found on these trees, and it's killing the branches. It's becoming more severe. It's getting worse.
And when was it first discovered? What year?
It was about 3 years ago we first discovered it. We saw the symptoms, and we weren't sure what was causing the symptoms. So we were looking at some of the more common diseases that we knew could be found on spruce, but we couldn't see that it wasn't common. So we were looking around and saying, well, this tree is dying of that, and this tree has this, and this tree has that. But all of a sudden, once we found the phomopsis cankers, and they're very hard to see, they're very small, and they're on these branches closer to the main trunk, way down inside. We started realizing why the needles were falling off and why the branches were dying at that point. So that was about 3 years ago.
And can the disease kill a tree?
It makes the trees very weak, and whether it actually kills the trees is up for debate, but it certainly will bring the tree down to the point where other factors will kill the trees. And there are trees that are dying. We have millions of spruce that have been planted in our landscape. A lot of people probably think that the Colorado blue spruce is native to Michigan, but it is native to Colorado. But we grow so many Colorado blue spruce that Colorado uses our spruce now to replant areas. So it's an amazing story.
And it's a common Christmas tree, right? Used at the...
Yeah. It's surprising how many Colorado blue spruce are still used in the Christmas tree industry. About 15% or more of the Christmas trees that go into the homes every holiday season are blue spruce. And then if they're not cut for that, if they're not purchased, then they have a chance to go out to the landscape. And they'll be around the houses, they'll be in mini malls and shopping centers along roads. They're very common, and a lot of people call them pines. Because it has a needle. Those are beautiful pine trees, and one way you can find out, there's not too many pines that will actually poke you, but a Colorado blue spruce will poke you. So you know you're dealing with a spruce when it pokes you. Not too many pines will do that.
So what are you looking at in terms of treatment for phomopsis?
Okay, so right now we're trying to find anything that works. There was an infection of spruce back in the 1970s and 80s that sort of mimics this, and they were not able to find anything that would manage that disease. That was called Cytospora canker. And so I think people think that there's nothing we can do about this. And this is a different disease, so we don't know that. This is becoming very common, and Cytospora canker wasn't common. This is not an invasive species at this point. We haven't found anything new. We just think the trees have become susceptible for some reason to this disease, to this pathogen, to this fungus that has always been here. And why would the trees all of a sudden become so susceptible? We're not sure. But if we could find something that could perhaps improve the health of the tree, a fungicide that could be injected into the tree or sprayed on the tree, we think that the trees need, at this point, just need a little bit more help, a little bit more health in order to combat these fungi that have been around for decades.
And so this is a problem here in Michigan. Is it just Michigan, or are you seeing it, or your work is mainly for the Michigan industry? Would that be fair to say? Or?
My work is mainly for the Michigan industry, but because pathogens in trees know no boundaries, we speak with people in other states, of course, and go to national meetings. And spruce has problems everywhere right now. I can't say that what they're seeing in another state is caused by phomopsis or what we're seeing. I would say that's a pretty good guess. But other states have other problems with their spruce, and we're trying to communicate effectively in dealing with these issues of why spruce are declining in especially the Great Lakes region.
And so Kellogg Forest is a great facility for you to be able to conduct this type of research. It allows you to do research you might not be able to elsewhere. Is that true?
This is true. The Kellogg Forest crew is maintaining 2 plots for us. You're only seeing one right now. We have another site that's a little bit more inaccessible, and they have been in there spraying various materials that we hope will manage the disease. This is just one site, and the other site is we actually have even more hope for. We're looking for anything that will give us a hint of management at this point, and we don't really care how absurd that management might be. We're looking for something that might work, and then we can adjust for reality later.
Any idea, estimates of how many trees are affected by this fungi?
I do not have an answer to that. I don't know how many millions of spruce trees we've planted, but I would count the number of houses and multiply by 10. They're everywhere, and they're along roads, and they're in malls, and this is maybe one of the problems, that we have overplanted spruce perhaps in some places. So it's as if you have a forest of spruce trees that they can't get away from the disease. If they're planted so closely to their neighbor that might be sick, that when they come in healthy, they get sick. We do need to diversify. We talk about diversifying our forests. We also need to diversify our landscape trees.
Can you show us some examples of branches with the phomopsis?
Just one
Are
second.
you ready?
I got one quick question. How big of a deal is the tree industry in Michigan? I mean, what kind of an industry are we talking about, where if the blue spruce are affected, how does that affect
Well, see, this is what happens when you get a plant pathologist here instead of Bert Craig. Bert Craig would be able to answer that real quick. Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, this is the beginning of the problem. Most of the branches on a tree are supposed to be alive, but you can see that these are dead, and they're not going to grow anymore. This is where a tree would grow from, is the tip. So when the branch loses its needles and the tip dies, then you have a very serious problem. And this seems to be what's spreading up and down the tree. It's not, it was all over the bottom of the tree. We've cut those branches out so that we can access the main trunk. But the tree, wherever we see these pink ribbons, we see the death of the tip. And that's the serious nature of this disease. That branch won't grow anymore. It won't fill in. And as that disease spreads, there'll be more and more branches that start to die. Normally we see it on the north side of the tree, the shady side of the tree first, and then it moves around and then up the rest of the tree.
Are there any of those cankers, or you said they're hard to see? Right?
Yeah, you need a razor blade. I was thinking about that. I can't cut off any of those, but. So you can see the white patches, and our graduate student, Chrissy McTavish, has indicated that these white patches, underneath the white patches, are where we will find the cankers. And so you can just clip away. This branch is already dead, so the whole thing will be brown, but these are the areas that the infection occurred, and then the sap comes out or leaves a dried resin, and then the rest of the branch will die.